Curtis is a nationally syndicated comic strip written and illustrated by Ray Billingsley. It began on October 3, 1988, and is syndicated by King Features. The strip mostly involves the title character, Curtis, getting in trouble at home and school, trying in many attempts to make his father, Gregg, quit smoking, trying to win the heart of aspiring diva singer Michelle, and stuffing his face. Curtis will often fantasize at school about his favorite superhero, Supercaptaincoolman, once a year, up through the 2012-2013 holiday season and resuming in the 2015-2016 season. Billingsley has Curtis and the gang take a hiatus one day after Christmas and focus on a special 2 to 3 week inspirational story to celebrate the festival of Kwanzaa. Also, around the Martin Luther King Jr. Day holiday, the strip will discuss some aspect of Dr. King's life. The month of February is also dedicated to Black History Month, in which Mrs. Nelson assigns her class to write about various African American figures in history. Curtis featured Dagwood of the Blondie comic as part of the 75th anniversary celebration for Blondie. Unlike Dennis the Menace, High and Lois B.C. Family Circus Baby Blues, the other comic strips that participated in the anniversary crossover, Curtis took an extended storyline lasting from August 29 to September 3, like Hagar the Horrible. Curtis was also featured in the 75th anniversary strip on September 4. Characters and story: Curtis Wesley Wilkins, main character, an 11-year-old boy, a rap fan with a huge crush on a girl named Michelle. He has a huge appetite and a talent for getting himself into trouble. Always wears an odd type of hat anyway but forward. According to the storyline, he got it at birth from his father, Barry Taylor Wilkins, Curtis' younger brother. Often likes to annoy and outsmart Curtis. The parents consider Barry to be the more trustworthy of the two, while Curtis usually sees him as a brat. He whines when he has to eat his vegetables and has no qualms about mashing Curtis to a pulp when called on to do it. Also earns myriad awards, which makes Curtis jealous. Barry has an imaginary friend named Oogie, who is green, has one eye, is about Barry's size, and likes to eat vegetables. Gregg Wilkins, Curtis' father, works at the DMV and hates his job. He and Curtis are regularly at odds over the tastes in music, among other things. Diane Wilkins, Curtis' mother, a housewife, she tends to get irritated by Curtis' antics, but is always supportive of him when he has a problem. Originally sporting an afro, Diane has received 2 different hairstyle makeovers over the years. The last one of these made Derek and Onion think that Gregg was having an affair. Diane and Gregg met when they were featured dancers on Soul Train. Mrs. Nelson, a middle-aged, overweight teacher. Since Curtis is the class joker, she doesn't get along very well with him. He does, however, do well when he makes an effort, and when he thanks her for giving him a good grade, she tells him he earned it. She also tells his mother good things about him at the parent-teacher conferences. Michelle Grant, a girl whom Curtis likes, even though she is 2 years older. Her father is rich, considered self-centered by most of the other characters. She only likes Curtis as a friend and discourages his attempts to date her. She is an excellent singer and hopes to become a famous star, currently starring in energy drink commercials. In a week-long series of strips starting November 30, 2009, she tells Curtis she was in a Super Fiber Chucks cereal commercial at age 3, and that her first role in a TV series would have been on The Muppet Show had Miss Piggy not felt threatened by her. In the October 10, 2007 strip, it is revealed that Michelle has a mother who has been admitted to rehab for treatment due to her problems with drug addiction. Chutney DeVoe, a girl who likes Curtis. Curtis only sees her as a friend, while he chases after Michelle. however, that may prove otherwise. In an early 2011 strip, Curtis finds Chutney with another guy, whom Curtis suspects is her boyfriend. That being said, Curtis tries to find out for himself, fearing that her new relationship with him will strongly affect the friendship. He finds that the guy is in fact one of her relatives who came to visit her family for a little while. Gunk, Curtis' cross-eyed Caucasian best friend, a native of the fictional Flyspeck Island. Gunk often gives some bizarre item to Curtis with disastrous results. One of his quirks is his refusal to fight anybody, but he also is cat-like in his moves to avoid his nemesis's punches. Because, as he says afterwards, just because I won't fight you doesn't mean I'm going to let you hit me. Gunther runs the Soul Scissors barber shop, never gets Curtis' name right, and who claims to know nearly every famous person. Rose Petal, niece of Gunther, who enjoys singing, but she gets fired from every gig she enters, because she has a foul mouth and a really bad attitude. She refuses to work for money she needs to pay for her rent, and ultimately Gunther throws her out of his shop, demonstrating tough love. She responds with profanity. According to Curtis, she thinks the world owes her. Derek, a bully, he and his friend Onion make fun of Curtis by calling him Wimpkins and using yo mama jokes, and on occasion physically harass him. Curtis attempts to avoid them as much as possible. Gunk, Chutney and others have helped Curtis against the bullying of Derek and Onion. In a late 2010 strip, Derek has a girlfriend named Veranda, who has an attitude like him and Onion. Onion, Derek's friend and fellow bully to Curtis. His real name is Norman, but is self-nicknamed Onion for being able to bring tears to a sucker's eyes, although Curtis once exclaimed that it was probably because he stunk. Miss Honeystump, Curtis' summer school teacher. The gag is that she's attractive, and therefore distracting to the students. However, possibly because of outcry from readers, the blonde Caucasian teacher was retroactively made African American in colorized versions of the strip. A fellow student, Venus, who may have a crush on Curtis, also went from white to black. Miss Kwame, Michelle's teacher, whom she is madly in love with. The gag is while Curtis fawns over her in his presence, she completely ignores his passes while dreaming about him. Heartthrob, an overweight friend of Curtis whose real name is Anthony Caldwell. He is polite and tells adults what they want to hear, but doesn't mean what he says. Recurring gags. Barry is almost always listening in on either phone or live conversations between Curtis and Michelle, which annoys Curtis. A frequent running gag in the strip. Each time this happens, it starts with Barry saying something offensive about Michelle, which causes Curtis to chase after him. Barry runs to Diane, saying, "Mama, Curtis is trying to hit me for no good reason." Curtis responds by saying, "Don't fall for his innocent little boy routine, Mom," and begins to explain what Barry did. More often than not, Diane does not believe Curtis and usually gives Barry ice cream to calm him while scolding Curtis and sending him off to do chores. On a couple of occasions, Barry even confesses to having listened to the conversations. This prompts questions from some over whether Diane properly punishes him for lying and eavesdropping. Gregg Wilkins is a heavy smoker, a habit he picked up in childhood and has apparently little desire to break, as it apparently helps him cope with life. Curtis is not happy with his father's smoking and tries at various points to make him quit, including by trying to shame him for having to stop at the grocery store in the rain with no umbrella just so he could purchase cigarettes and buy, purposely breaking his cigarettes in front of Gregg, which causes him to chase Curtis around the house. Another recurring theme involves Curtis' favorite comic book superhero Supercaptaincoolman. The strip reads like a comic book in most part, where Supercaptaincoolman engages in many types of adventures in his daily struggle to rid the world of his arch-nemesis, the evil Drive Horsehead. But just as the action is about to heat up, the third-to-last panel suddenly shows Ms. Nelson shouting, "Mr. Wilkins," as she catches Curtis reading his comics while he is supposed to be paying attention in class. While he gulps and says, "Ms. Nelson," he immediately tries to get out of the situation by lying. The last panel shows Curtis being sent to the principal's office as punishment for reading comic books in class. Once in a while, Curtis and Barry, just before church services begin, will observe ladies coming in wearing elaborate hats on their heads. Curtis will promptly make jokes about each hat they are wearing as they pass by the pew that Curtis and Barry are sitting in, while Barry tries not to laugh too loud. In the last panel, while Curtis is laughing over his ladies' hat jokes, Barry will typically warn Curtis about big trouble coming to him if they ever heard him make insulting jokes about the hats. In another recurring theme, Diane would have a dish made for either dinner or a bake sale at church placed on the table in front of Curtis. She turns away for 1 second only to turn back and find Curtis eating up everything at an amazingly fast rate. The last panel features Curtis sitting in his room after being punished for eating the whole dish Diane made for either everyone at dinner or the church bake sale. One recurring theme always involves Curtis and someone else entering some establishment with a name like the Don King School of Personal Etiquette or the Mike Tyson Institute of Good Mannerism, then finding out it's really a music store. Curtis explains that it's really my favorite record store in disguise, and that the locals torch the place once they find out its real identity, apparently due to the type of music it sells. The skits often show Curtis being disciplined for his various antics by either his mom or dad. However, they never show the actual punishment as it takes place. But the final frame of a strip where discipline is administered will show stars and such, showing where the punishment was administered. Another recurring theme is the first day of school strip, where the reader sees the city in the first panel. Then, the next 2 panels of the view brings the reader to where Curtis lives. The first 3 strips warn the reader about something that very disturbing is happening at this time of the morning, whether it is a skirmish or some other type of war. After being warned about what's to come in the 3rd panel, the reader will then be taken to the last panel where the actual event takes place, Diane forcing Curtis to get out of bed to get ready for school, while Curtis would rather stay in bed and sleep away.